Hi everyone, today I'm going to be making a delicious, cheesy, gluten-free pizza crust, and I'm going to be making a pretty good sized pizza out of it. Let's start with the toppings. I'm going to be using whole milk mozzarella, green pepper, and white onion. Go ahead and slice up the pepper and onion nice and thin. Doesn't matter how long they are as long as they're thin enough to cook down. I'm going to grate a slightly frozen block of cheese on the highest setting on my box grater. It should be about 6 to 8 ounces. I didn't really weigh it out before I started. I just know that it took the whole block. And you can see me grinding down the whole thing. Gets you a good little amount of mozzarella there. Now I'm going to preheat my oven to 450. That's about as close as I could get. Now go ahead and pause here to see the ingredients not included as milk. I'm going to start with dumping that box mix in there. You can use different types of flours, but that's all I had on hand. Flours can be kind of expensive when you're going gluten-free. Go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of any kind of oil that you prefer. I use canola, that's what I have on hand. It would be more delicious with olive oil. Following that, I'm adding 4 tablespoons of whole milk. This is just any old milk, but you can substitute it with almond milk, silk milk, anything that you have on hand would be pretty delicious. Now that the milk is in there, I'm going to add a half a cup of, I think it was Monterey and Colby Jack mix. It was optional on the box, but I found it to be pretty delicious. I'm just going to give those a preliminary mix before I add in a couple of eggs so that the ingredients are mixed together well. So now I'm going to move that bowl aside and crack in 2 large eggs. Excuse the speed at which I am cracking the egg. I had a cut on my finger I didn't want to aggravate. So now, once you get those eggs in there, go ahead and break the yolks and start mixing it together. It takes quite a bit of mixing to get it incorporated, so I sped this up for you, but I'd still like you to see the whole process. Once you get it fairly mixed together and you find that it can't come together anymore with a fork, go ahead and take it off the fork and start kneading it. This took me 4.5 to 5 minutes of kneading, adding in a good teaspoon of water whenever I felt that it was too dry. You can see me picking up the dough here. It looks very crumbly. It needs water. It's not coming together anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and add in 1 teaspoon of water and start kneading again. You're not going to want to over knead this just until it's smooth. So I'm going to jump ahead here and show you the smoothed out dough. Looks pretty nice. It's just come together, it's just smooth enough, so once you have that done, you can start stretching out your dough on your pan. Now, gluten-free dough is not as elastic and not as easy to mold as normal dough, so this takes quite a bit of stretching. This dough is so much tighter to stretch out. But just give it your all, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and that's what mine looks like. So now, go ahead and put that in the oven for 7 minutes at 450, just to pre-bake before you start topping it. I'm gonna go ahead and take this out. And now that we have it pre-baked, I'm gonna add on some tomato sauce. Spread it nice and thin. I don't want to get too much on there. I don't want it to be too soggy. After I spread out the sauce to the thickness that I like, I'm going to go ahead and get out some herbs and add that on there for some extra flavor. I like Italian seasoning. Go ahead and put that in your hand, crush it up, and sprinkle it all over. And also garlic powder, because who doesn't need garlic in their life? Am I right? So here's the garlic powder. I forgot to show the bottle. So then once I have that on there, I can start putting on my cheeses and my other toppings. I'm using a little bit of Parmesan here. I don't need too much. I just need enough for that extra sharp flavor that's kind of tangy. It just adds a nice contrast to the mozzarella that I'm about to put on. So go ahead and spread that out as well as you can. I grated just enough cheese to cover my pizza, as you can see. Doesn't need to be perfect, but that's just enough to cover it, and it's gonna melt down nicely. So now that we have the cheese on there, I'm gonna go ahead and start topping half of it with the green peppers and the onions. That way the other half can be just plain cheese. Now that that's all topped, I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in for 7 minutes. If you don't pre-bake this at this point, put it in for 15 to 17 minutes to cook. So here I am setting a timer for 7 minutes since I pre-baked it, and let's go. Now that that is done, I'm gonna take it out of the oven and put it on some hot pads, and I'm gonna let it cool down for 2 to 3 minutes before I try to cut into it. And look at how delicious that looks. This is my first attempt at making a gluten-free crust, so I'm pretty excited about it. Look at how delicious that looks. You can see it's nice and brown down the outside. The cheese is gooey, and now that we have a slice, it came out really nice. It's holding together really well, and it is absolutely delicious.